I call this meeting to order of the Board of Trustees of the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Barnes,
Here.
Bauer,
Here.
Delgado,
Here.
Dial, Fasella,
Here.
Hannon,
Here.
Chaplin.
Here,
Quorum is present.
thank you. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. We have a motion.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved. Do we need a roll call for this? We can just,
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And when you're done with the roll call, I'd like to make a quick comment if I can. So
okay,
go ahead,
please
Beth.
call the roll.
Barnes,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Fasella,
Yes.
Hannon,
Yes.
Chaplin.
Yes, the agenda is approved.
Sorry, Margaret, there's a paragraph, public comment modifications
Yes, in the
that
middle there.
if you could read that aloud.
Okay.
Thank you.
Since the board meeting will not be open to the public due to Governor Pritzker's social distancing requirements, comments may be emailed to public@mtd.org. They will be read aloud in the audience participation portion of the meeting in the order that they were received. Email submissions will be accepted until the time reserved for audience participation of the meeting is over. Each comment will be limited to 5 minutes. The primary purpose of this hearing is to receive input from the public on the proposed fiscal year 2021 Budget and Appropriation Ordinance for the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District for the period from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. Beginning on May 21, 2020, copies of the tentative budget were made available for public inspection on the district's website. The notice of public hearing appeared in the News Gazette on May 21st, 2020, and the certificate of publication is available for inspection. Will the clerk read any comments received from the public?
No comments were received.
No comments. Okay. If there are no more comments, I declare the public hearing on MTD's Budget and Appropriation Ordinance for fiscal year 2021 is closed. Okay. Next up is audience participation. Any comments for that?
No comments received.
Okay, thank you. Item 6, approval of the minutes of the May 27th, 2020 board meeting.
I move that we approve the May 29th minutes. What'd you say?
Well, it says 27th here. I didn't.
May
double-
27th minutes.
Second.
Roll call.
That was Bruce Hannon that seconded.
Barnes,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Fasella,
Aye.
Hannon,
Yes.
Chaplin.
Yes. Okay, we move on then to item 8 on the agenda, the managing director report. Excuse me.
We don't have any
We
communications.
haven't had any communications. Okay, then we will move on to item number 8 on our agenda, which is the managing director's report.
All right, thank you. We are reporting on May, and May ridership was down 73.9% from last May, which brings us to a 21.9% drop from for the year compared to last fiscal year. And I think, as is obvious to most people, that is because of COVID-19 and the ongoing stay-at-home order and request for essential trips only and the like. So I think we're all kind of familiar with that at this point. The only thing I'll point out in addition to that in my report is that interestingly, normally this time of year, actually normally every time of the year, our campus routes outperform our community routes. But because campus is all but a ghost town, our community routes are outperforming our campus routes right now. And so I don't think that means anything other than obviously there's a pandemic and campus was closed down, but I just think it's an interesting turn of events as a result of the pandemic. Moving on in the report to our operating revenues. May 2020, the operating revenue was 18.8% below May of 2019, and year-to-date operating revenue was 3.1% below 2019 fiscal year to date. And of course, that is also because we're not collecting fares and our ridership is down, and all the associated revenue sources don't really exist right now. The operating expenses were 2.1% below May of last year, but the year-to-date operating expenses were 4% above FY 2019, which is normal and healthy, and I think we'll probably be in that neighborhood again by the end of the fiscal year, which is fairly typical. The year-to-date operating revenues compared to our budget were $123,000 above that budget, and the operating expenses are $3.5 million under budget. So even with the damage of the COVID-19 effects, we still are doing well relative to our overall budget. And I won't read in detail the notes that I have there following the statistics, but I will just mention that much of this is relative to the rallies and protests that we see in the community. And we're seeing sometimes 2 to 3 of those a week. And I just want to say that staff has been really great in terms of coming out and responding to the operational needs that those create, because the marchers are shutting down streets and intersections. And so obviously we have to reroute and accommodate those events on the fly. And so it's really been gratifying to see our staff step up and respond appropriately and put in the lots and lots of extra hours and days that we're doing. I think most of us are working just about every weekend to accommodate these, and many evenings. And so I just want to publicly thank staff and let everybody know that we appreciate that. And with that, I will take any questions through page 37 on the Managing Director's report.
Actually, more of a comment. Just like to, on behalf of the board, I think I speak for all of you that we commend Director Gannett and the staff for rising to the occasion.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely going above and beyond, and this is great. I do think I have gotten 4 or 5 comments from people asking us, why is MTD busing protesters around, or, are we facilitating riots? And you sort of just respond, well, that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're assisting other units of local government that need help, whether it's, getting people off the streets after they're done with their march and quickly facilitating a return to normalcy, or, helping prevent medical issues with people that are overheated, things that we normally do. Just like when there's a fire, you send a bus in the winter to keep people warm. So I think explaining this, and I might even reference some people to this if they ask me what's going on, why are there buses following protests, things like that. But yeah, you explained it really well, and you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just add that, we look at this, we certainly acknowledge that there can be or may be sides to the issue. We're not taking sides on the issue. What we do day in and day out is provide the best service that we can to the community. And that means these marchers are members of our community as well. And so we are helping them. But by helping them, we also help other members of the community, because we're clearing out the streets more quickly and efficiently than if they all had to walk back to the starting point. and that kind of thing. So we really look at it, and so I'm not telling you how I personally feel about it, but just from the staff perspective, we look at it as this is our job. This is what we do. We serve the community, and this is what that looks like.
Thank
Chair?
you.
Ms. Chair,
Yes,
I had a quick change. Last meeting, we
You
had
should identify
approved-
yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle Wright, Finance Director. And the last meeting, we had approved the new line of credit with Prospect Bank. And in talking about the paperwork that goes along with that, they agreed to lower our rate to 2.75% instead of 3.55% on the $10 million line of credit. So I just wanted to pass that good news along.
thank you. That is good news. Any other comments, questions? Okay, let's move on to our action items. The first is the adoption of ordinance number 2020-2, the Budget and Appropriation Ordinance for fiscal year 2021. You know, we've already had discussions on the board about this, but is there any, it begins on page 38. Is there any further discussion or questions or anything? Take advantage of Michelle being here. Okay, well, I think we can then just move forward on a vote. We need a motion
So motioned.
and a second.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance number 2020-2, Budget and Appropriation Ordinance for fiscal year 2021. Will the clerk call the roll?
Barnes,
Yes.
Bauer,
yes,
Delgado,
Yes.
Fasella,
Yes.
Hannan,
Yes.
Chaplin.
Yes. Okay, it's adopted. Then we go on to 9B, the procurement manual update, and we will ask Jane for her introduction.
Thanks. This procurement manual update is adds 2 appendices to our procurement manual. The first one on page 57 of your board packet details purchasing authority for staff. And page 58 is the credit card policy, details our policy for use of district credit cards. And the only updates to the procurement manual are just to now reference these new appendices.
Yeah, the text in the manual is on page 55. Are there any questions for Jane? No? Wait, 1 minute.
I would just say it's good to see that our staff always tries to stay up to date and we review not old, but existing policies and procedures and add things. And that's really good. I happen to be with another organization where they can't do virtual voting because nobody ever revised the bylaws to bring them up to date. So anyway, glad to see these changes and good work.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Phil?
I think these are good changes to make. I do feel like I'm kind of beating a dead horse with this, but I would like to see some action on the part of staff just to kind of look at how we can get more information. Obviously, the A&E thing I've discussed where we can actually have a local preference, but also just whatever we're bidding out, I'd like to see us really actively reaching out to anything in our district that could bid on it. Even if we can't give a preference to them, we want to make sure we're reaching local firms. And if you wouldn't mind, maybe shoot me if we have some place that we put things out for bid as a website, I'd kind of like to see that and be on that list. So if I know of somebody that could bid on something, I can tell them, hey, look at this. Something just came up. But I think we all need to be sort of thinking about what can we do to, especially with the economy in the state it's in, try to encourage anybody who's in our district, if they've got an ability to either work for us or even, bid on contracts we have, go out and apply and try to be involved and try to keep as much of this money in the district as we can within the bounds of the law. So
Thanks. I had a question just that made me think of something. Is there a place on the website where we have sort of RFP things and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we have a special section of mtd.org, our public website, that shows all invitations for bid or requests for proposals or requests for letters of interest. There's no like automatic distribution that I think you're thinking of, Phil, but we can, in addition to posting it publicly on the website, we can send an invitation for bid or or a request for proposals to people directly, to firms directly, and we do that. And I think what Phil is saying is making sure that distribution list includes all of the applicable local firms, and we can include board members on that list too. It can go to anyone.
Just Phil, as we talked about, we have Appendix 3.4A to this procurement policy, which is procurement of architects, engineers, and land surveyors. And if the board is interested, we can add some language to this to clarify that location of a firm is one of the items that we would include in the evaluation process. We do nod to that already in this appendix, but we can clarify that a little and expand on it if that's what you'd like. And I think staff would be happy to do that.
is that something we would have to do in order to get it onto like a scorecard or something?
I mean, I think if we're going to have that as an evaluation
We should list it.
criteria, it should be a part of the appendix.
So would that be something where we could make a motion now to ask for that, or is that something we would have to
We,
put on an agenda?
we can't make
for
a
future
motion.
meeting?
Well, I guess you could make a motion because this is on the agenda. So you could make a motion, but the appendix isn't something that you have to approve. So you can just indicate to us that you want us to do this, and we can do that easily. It's not something that requires board input, but I'd like your input on it.
So we could approve what we've got today with the proviso that's at the future meeting or something, that some language might be added to cover this issue.
Yeah, we could do that, or you can just say, you can just vote on the changes that we have before you, and you can say, yeah, why don't you add language that you can make that a part of your motion, or you could just, we can just kind of get interest in from a conversational perspective from each board member, and that's fine. I guess actually, just are there any board members that are opposed to that? Because
Right.
My sense is that you all would, or at least I think most of you would support that. So barring anybody who has a negative response to that, then we'll make an adjustment to the appendix.
So, but an alternative would be we could approve this as it stands and then have this new language come up as an amendment to what we've already approved and approve that.
Yes, but I guess what I'm trying to clarify is that the process that the board has already approved, that there are certain appendices that require your approval, and there are certain appendices
Oh, yeah, I remember
that do not require your
I
approval.
remember that.
This particular appendix is one of those appendices that don't need your approval. So we'll
Okay.
just make the adjustment, and we'll show it to you. We'll let you see it, and even before we codify it. But yeah, so I'm just suggesting we don't have to have it on a future board agenda.
That seems good. I guess just so I'm not like running renegade here, is there anybody else on the board that has some like reticence about this? Because I don't want to be pushy.
I guess I would like to know exactly what the language would be. You know, do we,
And that's fair. And
is
that's
it a
why,
matter of doing our absolute utmost to get local people to be part of this process? Does it mean that if they're not local, they're not eligible?
I don't think we can do that.
Well, I guess I'd like to have I'd like to see the language.
I think, Margaret, what Jane has already provided to me is roughly, well, let me read the section as it reads right now
Okay,
without any changes. The selection committee will evaluate the firms submitting letters of interest, taking into account qualifications, ability of professional personnel, past record and experience, performance data on file, willingness to meet time requirements, location, workload of the firm, and such other qualifications-based factors as the MTD may determine in writing are applicable. So that's how it reads now. That's currently what our process says. What we would suggest, what staff would suggest as a slight tweaking of that is that where it already says location and then comma, and then the rest of the list, we would say location of business office and or project team members. Or we could just say location of project team members, comma, then the rest of the list.
what do you think about that?
I think the location of project team members would be a good, I think that would be a good compromise, yeah.
Well, and it will be overall beneficial to have, have.
I
it
certainly
here.
prefer
Well, yeah, we
face-to-face.
can see face-to-face meetings and that kind of thing if it's really necessary. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve what we've got in front of us with the idea that this language will be added to it in the future. Is that all right with you?
I tell you what, if it'll make you feel better or make it feel more simple and direct, why don't you ask for a motion to approve the changes that are in the action item, and that you direct staff to include the change that I just read to you in Appendix 3.4A.
So motioned.
I can't make any motions. Somebody's got to make that motion.
Second.
Okay, so did you get that, Beth? Okay.
So Phil moved and he seconded. Okay. I think we've had quite a lot of discussion about this, but is there any further discussion, any questions, any comments? What about our far-flung members on Zoom here?
Madam Chair, I think Brad has joined the meeting as well.
Okay.
I have, thanks. I'm going to let Margaret just continue on her course. She seems like she's doing a fine job.
Well, I hope so. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the changes to the procurement manual. Now comes the vote. Ms. Clerk?
Barnes,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes,
Chaplin,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Vasella,
Yes.
Hannon,
Yes.
Dial.
Yes,
Okay, it's adopted. Now, the next item is the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, which begins on page 60 in your packet. Mitch?
Good afternoon, Mitch Spicer, Safety and Training Director here at MTD. It's great to see you all. It's been a few months since I've been in person at one of these. Looking for board approval of MTD's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, which is also going to be referred to as the PTASP here. Some background on this document, why we created it to begin with, is the PTASP in general is fulfilling the U.S. Department of Transportation Final Rule of 49 Code of Federal Regulation Part 673, which the final rule became effective of July 19th of 2019, which required certain public transportation agencies receiving funds under the FTA to comply with these rules by July 20th of this year. First thing is the reason why they are bringing this document to these transportation agencies. It's fulfilling statutes that are part of MAP 21, which are to focus on strengthening the safety of public transportation agencies. The date originally for this to be approved by all boards across the United States was July 20th of 2020. However, due to COVID-19, that has actually been pushed to December 31st. However, we would like we are really proud that we have been able to meet the original deadline. And it was also still encouraged by the FTA and the US DOT that we still meet the July 20th deadline. There are some parts that are not required by MTD currently. We fall under the 100 buses peak requirement. We actually did have the choice of being part of the state plan because we still are considered a small transit agency. But however, we're getting closer and closer to that 100 buses at peak almost every day, but every season. So, you know, we're getting closer and closer to becoming considered a large transportation agency. So you know what, let's start acting like one. Let's get this document put together. It's vested within the organization, whatnot, and that we can, so it is that when we do find ourselves in an audit where it is being looked at, we can now say that we've been going through these things several years now. We have a very well rounded program here. PTAS establishes MTD's safety management policy, the safety performance targets, safety target coordination, safety risk management, safety assurance, 2 sections in there, management of change and continuous improvement. Once again, we're not required of us, but we still wanted to make sure that those were included in there as we move closer to those 100 buses at peak. Safety promotion and safety management documentation. I would now like to open for discussion.
Does anybody have questions or comments for Mitch? Anybody out there?
Margaret, if I can just say, this has been a rather large undertaking, and it's a significant piece of legislation. Mitch mentioned MAP 21, which may not be something that you have off the top of your head knowledge of, but MAP 21 stands for moving
ahead for progress,
moving
21st
ahead
century.
for progress in the 21st century. And that was the surface transportation bill that was passed in 2012, I think. We now, the successor to that is the FAST Act, if you remember, and now they're working on the new one, the INVEST Act. But those are the surface transportation bills that fund all surface transportation. So highways, trucking, buses, rail, all of that. So it doesn't do airports, but it does surface transportation. And one of the things with that MAP 21 that was major relative to all of the surface transportation bills since 1964 is that it added this this type of compliance to the Federal Transit Administration. So sorry, I'll stop. It was a major undertaking. That is a major change for our industry, but really positive because it codifies how we approach safety. And that is something that MTD has really been pushing for, to develop an overall safety culture. And we've got a bunch of great employees that really understand safety. Mitch has done an outstanding job in preparing this document. He stepped in right at the front end of having to do this and being brand new to the district. He knocked it out of the park even before the deadline. So I just want to let you know that.
Thank you. Well, I have to say, I was very impressed with, he's only been here a year, and
1 year ago today, actually.
and he managed to get this all together, which seems
I'll make a comment.
okay. Go ahead.
Again, just like the procurement manual, it's timely, it's proactive. I really like the fact that you're looking at not only at mitigation, and also what if something almost happens? What, maybe there wasn't anything serious, but what can you do to prevent that? Just a lot of good points, a lot of detail. The only question I had, and I know I'm supposed to ask questions ahead of time, was on the system reliability, like current performance, fixed route bus, MB/-DO. System reliability 5-year average is 45,306. Is that mechanical failures in 5 years? And is that a good number or not a good number?
Really with the PTAS at the moment, even when we've met with the FTA and the U.S. Department of Transportation, they really don't, they didn't even really provide much of a guideline on how to find these numbers, just because it still is very new to everyone. Every agency is going to be unique. We did not keep those numbers in the past. However, yes, it is the miles between road calls. So the average right here, we didn't keep the numbers until January 2019. So we have a full year there that's being represented. However, it is the number of miles. So right now it is for motor bus, it is about 45,000 miles between a road call on average.
Yeah, I thought it might be incidents, and that seemed like a lot.
Other, Phil?
I am curious. So when we're talking about injury rates, this is in the operation of buses. So if somebody becomes injured at a desk job or becomes injured moving a box at, our operations center, would that fall into this as well?
No, it does not. These are the numbers that we report to the National Transit Database. So typically the injuries that are reported here are injuries that resulted in the person having to be transported away from the scene, either by either it's an employee where we transported them ourselves, or a passenger that has to be transported away from the scene via ambulance, for example.
We're looking specifically at during the operation of our bus.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's right. So all of this is directed to the operation that we provide. It's what the other scenario that you described would be a workers' comp. And so that we've always done that. And so this is really specific to the service that we have on the street.
Mhm. Are there other questions or comments?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
It seems to me that we've had a very safety conscious culture at MTD for a long time. The changes here, are they mostly reporting data, or are there significant procedural changes that you're seeing?
There are only a very few small procedural changes that are in here that present really nothing new to what our processes are. More or less, the focus here is on our documentation, our record keeping of safety events, such as what was mentioned earlier, such as, close call reporting. That is something that we're able to keep record of, because it is said that, anytime you do have an accident happen, we had a but the industry as a whole, that incident has happened multiple times before as a close call, but it didn't result in someone getting hurt. This is now where we have the opportunity to collect that data and keep record of it, so we can do something about it beforehand.
Mitch, I don't want you to undersell yourself too much. I think there are two actually quite large significant changes. One is the close call reporting, but the other is the whole Hiram process. Those are pretty significant. You touched on the close call reporting, but why don't you talk about Hiram a little bit?
Yeah, the Hiram reporting is a process of going through the of an incident or a topic that has been brought up, either by an operator that comes to us personally or reported through an email, anything like that, or a result of an accident actually happening. Is the HISR. It's a very long acronym, but it does set forth a process of, so we can kind of just break down what led up to this. What are the things that we can look at? What are the mitigation processes that we can have here put in place? Is there a clear-cut way that we could fix this and prevent this from happening?
And that evaluation process
Yeah.
involves a committee, an employee committee that reviews it. So that's new, that we are bringing in frontline employees to participate in this analysis and identification. And they participate in determining how we are going to mitigate safety hazards. And so it really is an effort to get our frontline employees, who are our eyes and ears on the street, involved in the process, because they're our best resource.
Phil?
One area that does kind of concern me that I'd be curious about how you would avoid would be, I guess, looking at road calls as an issue.
What page are you on, Phil?
Just in general, I guess one area where it's met, you mentioned system reliability would be, say, page 13 or 74 in your packet. you know, there's a tendency when there is any kind of consequence or even a scorekeeping sort of thing to avoid an event. And sometimes you take unnecessary risks in doing so. So if you have a, you know, a bus that's giving you some trouble and you're thinking, well, I should call in a road thing, but I think I can limp it back because I don't want to get dinged on this, or I don't want to hurt our score. And I want to make sure that there's something in place that does not accidentally encourage that sort of behavior, because a road call, if you can get off the road in a good location, is very often the right thing to do, rather than driving back on a rim or other things you could do that might actually end up damaging equipment or causing larger problems or a real safety issue. So
Yeah, that really comes down to the training of our operators to recognize that error is a issue, and that, you know, if they do need to make a call for a road call, that they can describe the issue well enough that they can confidently say, I don't feel comfortable or confident to drive this bus back or anything like that. And then we'll also be, it is also encouraged by maintenance to never take risks with that kind of stuff.
And to be clear, there would never be any discipline associated with someone calling in a maintenance problem, or maintenance doesn't get disciplined if there's a maintenance problem. I mean, road calls are, what Mitch is talking about is that safety culture, right? And that's what we train into our operators and our maintenance technicians. I mean, we want the vehicles to be in their best condition possible. And so if there's a maintenance problem, call it in. No one is getting in trouble for that. We encourage you to call in if there are maintenance problems. So it's really part of the whole culture and the training that we do.
I'm just, my turn. Well, I'm just curious, is this National Transportation Database open to the public? Can we go to some website and look at what's there
Yeah,
at the FTA?
Right.
I certainly don't know the URL off the top of my head, but if you Google FTA National Transit Database, actually probably you could just do National Transit Database. You'll get the link, and yeah, that's all publicly available.
Okay, is it by agency or?
Correct. Yeah, there's a, I actually have it bookmarked. I can pull it up on my phone, I guess.
Well, so by agency, and what, updated once a month, quarterly?
No, it's updated.
For safety related things.
There are annual reports, and then yes, there are monthly reports for the safety information. What I generally use, by the way, it's transit.dot.gov/NTD. And there's a search engine, and you could just type in Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District, or actually just Champaign, and you're going to get MTD in Champaign County, Illinois, and you're going to get Urbana County, Ohio. So you could select either one that you're interested in. They have a small county system in Urbana, Ohio. But yeah, you can look up any transit agency in the country on this search engine and get there. What is most interesting is the annual information, because you can compare budgets and operating ratios and ridership, all kinds of things. You can pull up each whatever agencies you're interested in and compare those. But you can also get the monthly. Is it monthly or quarterly?
I report them monthly.
Yeah, so the monthly safety information too.
Okay, thank you, Phil. You had some?
I was just going to say very good.
Oh. Well, I was curious about it because it sounds like it has lots of interesting stuff in it. Are there any other comments, questions from board members, from our far-flung members?
Hi, Mitch. This is Tomas Delgado speaking. I just had a quick question. You had mentioned that there are certain PTAS regulations that wouldn't apply to our district due to its current size. What would be an example of a regulation that you foresee applying to MTD that's sort of in line with our projected growth?
The two sections that were not required of us are the management of change and the continuous improvement. The nice thing about those is that stuff that we're already doing within the organization through MTD 2071. However, all the rest of it, outside of those two, are areas that we are regulatory wise required to have.
Tomas, this is Carl again. Another aspect is just the fact that Mitch and his staff put this PTASP together. That in of itself is because we chose to behave like we were a larger agency than we are. We technically could have signed off on the state PTASP, which so the Illinois Department of Transportation, they are working, they're not completed with theirs, but they're working on a PTASP. And so Springfield and Decatur and Rock Island and Rockford and all these other downstate transit agencies and all of the county transit agencies sign off as a participant of the state PTASP. Madison County, just outside of St. Louis, and Champaign-Urbana, and CTA, Pace, and Metra in Chicago, we all are doing our own PTASPs, and we're right on that bubble because our peak is 99 buses and the trigger point is 100 buses. And so we just decided we're going to act like we're one of the big guys because we can own the process that way, and we're going to be there in the not too distant future probably anyway, so why not do it?
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thomas, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just saying that makes a lot of sense, and thank you for putting this really robust plan together.
If I could just really quickly, this is Amy Snyder, Chief of Staff, just tie together some acronyms for you because this is kind of acronym-y. So Mitch and Carl mentioned HIRAM, which is something that we made up, patent pending. So it stands for Hazard Identification, Risk Assessment, and Mitigation. And that ties into this continual improvement element that technically a system our size does not have to do. But this HIRAM process, which I think there's a really good illustration on page 22 of the plan, but page 83 of the packet, that shows you as you're assessing a risk, in order for you to mitigate it, you have to evaluate what it is. And that's part of this continual improvement where we're bringing in the front line as well as staff. And that is an example of us acting like a bigger system than we are.
The 100 buses, that's 100 buses on the road. We actually own more than 100 buses, don't we?
That's correct. Yes, we have our fixed route fleet is 114. But the peak number that we have out at a single moment in time is 99. Okay. That's our largest pullout.
Okay. Any further questions, comments for Mitch? Nope. Then I think we need a motion.
Motion that we approve the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan.
Second, Brad Dial.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved. Are you ready? Are we ready? It has been moved and seconded that we approve the Public Transit Agency Safety Plan for the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District. Will the clerk please call a roll?
Barnes,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Dial,
Yes.
Vasella,
Yes.
Hannan,
Yes.
Chaplin.
Yes. Okay. That concludes our agenda for today. Our next meeting will be on Wednesday, July 29th, 2020. I assume Linda has checked the day of the week to make sure it's really Wednesday at 3 p.m. Do we need a motion for adjournment? No. I think I'm just going to be powerful and adjourn it. The meeting is adjourned.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Good job, Mark.
Congratulations, Mitch, on your anniversary.
Yes.